Wow, week 6. Oh man, that really means we have 3 weeks left. Okay, 9 week class, week 6, 3 weeks, and really the last week is same type of week, but it is the last week. So just keep that in mind as you're working through this content, is that once that final date of the semester for the online, for the 9 week courses, which is that Friday, right? And really, I've already talked about the end of the semester, but and if you scroll down, I've already made it available, and you've already done a look at it. But really, for us, it's the 11th, and that's really at midnight. This is the last time you could submit work. And if you've missed work, I do allow you to submit late for a reduced 25% off work. Okay, so if you have any questions about that, let me know. So now that we've moved through the HTML, the CSS, and the Bootstrap, now we're actually going to take this to another level maybe, but so because Bootstrap makes things easier, there's even a more easy way to get started doing a site for folks that, and you could talk about for the various reasons they might do this, but you're going to find a template built with Bootstrap already set up for you to use. Now in this, so just to give you an overview, so you're going to find, and I do, the order here is important, is to, oh yeah, so it's first the current topics is to find one, right? Then to copy it, and I'll show you how to do that, and then getting to know that template. This is really our first, and it'll be some of our second day for week 6 as well. So let's just start here. Is that what I say here is that there's paid and unpaid, but I would start with and I don't say Google here, but it's what I use, is I want you to find a template that you would use for Project Zero, okay? And there are ways, just to clarify, that you could use some of the built-in Bootstrap templates, but I actually want you to find one that somebody built using Bootstrap. Okay, so, and then make a decision on which one you're going to use. And I would say to you, look around a little bit and don't just pick the first one. And I would say this in a tongue-in-cheek, right? The first pretty one. Because what you really want to do, right, is actually, and then you reply, how many templates did you look at and why did you select this specific one? Okay, and then give us a link to it. So I've given you here some keywords to start searching, right? So if I did now, and this is important, what we learned was, and if you remember in our Bootstrap Travesty media, he showed Bootstrap 3. Well, there's not a huge difference between 3 and 4, but you definitely could, as you were search for Bootstrap 3 template free. This is key, and you want to be careful when you're looking at this stuff, because the idea is not for you to have to pay for anything here, okay? So you can start looking, and this is again the first come first serve, right? Find one that you like, one that's free, right? So first you're looking at the design, right? So think about, depending on where you think you're going with your Project Zero, whether you're going to do a personal or a organization of the topics that we've covered, or something else that you would have talked to me about, right? Consider that. And also, like I said before, consider the Bootstrap version, because you could do that in your search, like I just showed Bootstrap 3. And then if I changed it, which I decided that for me, I think I will do a Bootstrap 4, because I want to look at Bootstrap a little bit, right? And then here is, now these, I believe, oh, these are actually free. Okay, I kind of looked on this site before, and it seems like they said free. I didn't see that they were, right? So 21, so I would look through here. Okay, here's some, there's a lot of examples, okay? So again, spend some time looking around, and once you feel like you're close to a decision, maybe you've narrowed it down, like here I'm going to be using this one. So this one, and then this, because this is a first come first serve concept, what you're going to want to do here is reserve this. So and this should be pretty easy. There's so many examples out here. So just put a link to it. And you want to make sure that you have gotten one that's free, one that you can download. And so for this particular one, and this is the one I'm going to play around with. And the thing that I would look for is, does it have some type of menuing? So let me just show you. We have not the view source. Although, by the way, we are going to get to that, because that's going to be part of our work this week. So what I'd be looking for here is it's got some kind of menuing, because this is going to be our category / menus, right? And in this case, I have what appears to be probably a single page versus a multi-page. And I think multi-page actually would work better, so I would probably just figure out how this is done and create a multi-page, because that's the experience I want you to have. So even if you find what's called a single page website, I will, in my work, and you'll see it through the examples of how to create multiple page. Instead of one page, you would have then multiple pages you could create. So we'll go through that later. So the other thing I did before I selected mine is I actually ended up downloading it into my local system, not into a repo yet, just into my local system. And then if you're on Windows, right, there's open extract all. If you're on Mac, you just double click and then you get a folder. And what you can do, and this is, and I'm moving a little bit, so I'll stop here in a second into the second item due, right, is we're going to start looking at what is involved in here. But one of the things you could do is just look at the code, but that's what you're going to do next. So because some of these folks that have built these sites did a better or not so good job of writing the code, and based on what you've already learned, you can actually look at that code and see if you can read it. Can you understand it? Okay, and then what I mean by that is, like, you should recognize almost 90% of the code itself, but there's also some of these other files that we'll start talking about why they're needed and if you can do without them. And most of them, and at least this one did, has a SCSS, which is a preprocessor for CSS that we won't use for this site, although you hopefully will learn this in the future. But anyway, I'm going to stop there for this one. Okay, so give us a link. Think about it. This is the one you're going to commit to for the rest of the class, because we're on week 6 and we don't have a lot of time left. So find one, right? Make a decision. And then in your reply, like I said before, tell us why and how many you looked at. All right, so now that you have that, you're going to copy now, and be very careful here, right? So once you have that downloaded, what you're going to do is copy the template directory into your GitHub Pages repo. Okay, and I want this done the way I've determined. Do not copy it into the root of your GitHub repo for your GitHub Pages yet. We will do that later. For now, right, I want you to copy it and then complete the GitHub workflow to provide us a link to your file, right? And then in your process, look for at least 3 codes and or files you want to learn more about. And in your reply, post your results, right? Because you're going to end up looking at all this code starting this week and into next. But at least start here, because there's going to be a lot of things in this folder. Again, it will vary based on which template you have. Okay, so let's walk you through that now. So now that I have, for me, I'm going to go to my downloads, right? So what I want to do is now take this, and I want to keep this directory name, okay? Because I want to have that directory in that directory name as a subdirectory in my GitHub Pages repo, okay? So for me, what I would do is keep this window open. I do a new Finder window. I've shown you there is ways to do it inside of VS Code, but I find it's just easier here. So first I'm going to have those two open, and I'm going to go ahead and open let me find it here. Yep, my GitHub IO, right? So this is the repo and the files associated with your website that you'll use for your Project Zero, remember this is not inside of our course repo. This is outside of that course repo. Okay, so hopefully by now because we've done this a couple times, you have this process down. Okay, so I'm just leaving this open. I'm going to go back to my Finder here, right? And what I'm going to do is navigate to, for me, that directory. So I have it, 82, that's the directory, right? So this is what we call the root directory for that website. And so now over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this and just place it to where it falls at the same folder level as the CSS and the images, right? So click, drag, and drop. So that is now in my, and you can see I have the oh, actually I made a mistake. That's always fun, right? Is like, oh no, I didn't either. I thought I had copied it. Sorry, I was looking at this and thinking it was inside of this, and it didn't. It actually did copy it the way I want. So whew, glad I did it that way. Right, so what I would want to see in your work is that you have copied it into whatever they named the folder, because they will give you that, and then they will provide you, right, the files here as you've unzipped them and then copy them into your GitHub IO repo root directory. Okay, so now there's a couple ways we could open this, right? So now that we have this, I could come over here, and by the way, notice I instantly, and look at this, look at all of these files that I have in this, and I'm clicking here, but really what you're probably hopefully used to is just doing get status here, right? And it's got, oh my god, you've got this new folder, and inside of here it's got all these new files. Remember, green is that we haven't staged them yet, right? So it's okay, but even though there's quite a few files, we're not going to end up using them all, right? But for now, I could go ahead and just make sure you're ready to do this, right? So make sure you have it in the right location, right? And by the way, you could here is actually open the index file of, and I'm gonna, because there's two, right? So right now there's an index file setting on the root of your repo, and then there's an index file setting inside that folder. So open the one inside the folder, and I'm just going to do the view in browser, right? So that I can see that, and I can tell by looking at the URL here, is local. And it looks fine, it looks like it rendered fine, it's still there, so I've copied it intact. And so now the thing you're going to want to do is actually do your GitHub, right? Git add. Now this is where if you don't do star, you're going to end up individually doing those files, and man would that be a lot, right? Git commit -m adding template directory to my site, right? Oh yeah, that would help if I did that right. It really helps when you do M here. Cool, so it added all those in. Notice my green is now gone, and so now I could do git push. Now, by the way, some of you are having to do git push origin and master here, and that's fine. The only reason you're getting that is that you, for some reason on your local system, you don't have the origin and master set up. Typically, those are set up when you clone. So the fact that you haven't, I'm not sure exactly why, but for whatever reason, you may be doing git push origin and destination. Oh, yeah, hold on. I know why. Yeah, so for you, hopefully that works fine. I just have, and I've got to do this. And actually what's cool about this is one of your fellow students actually found a plugin or an extension for Visual Studio Code that helps you manage multiple GitHub accounts. But right now I'm actually doing it, and I need to clean it up for me. And I know this, there's various issues that can come up with GitHub that for especially when you're pushing code, right? But hopefully that, and I'm sure for most of you that went fine, but it's just doing the git push, right? So git push there. Now it takes a few minutes here because it's gonna go for a little bit. So now what you're gonna want to do is now go to the web, right? go to your GitHub repo / the name of the subdirectory that you used, right? That's why it's important to know what that is. So here's mine. Okay, I see it. It's bootstrap. Oh, sorry, let me get out here. So, because you're going to need to type this exact name the way it is. Now, just to make my life easier, I'm going to, now that you don't have to do this, I'm just doing this for time. I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to come over to here, and I'm going to paste it. And if I've done this right, then I have the website, the template on my website in a folder. Okay, and this is good. And we could talk about various other things that you might want to do here, but for this step, this is a good start to actually do this process, because next what we'll start doing, and might as well go into the next item here, is I want you to actually, oh, by the way, let's just finish this. So now that you have that copied to your, pushed up to your, copied locally into a subdirectory, and then pushed into GitHub, right? I also want you to spend a little time, because we're going to continue this on the next item, looking at the code here, right? So, so there's, and again, yours is going to be different. You're going to end up looking at definitely all the code in the index file, right? Looking at understanding what these subdirectories are doing, right? Some of these are pretty clear, right? CSS we've seen. Device mockups for me are probably just the way they're going to look on the, and it shows pictures of the way they're going to look, this site's going to look on various devices, which is good, but I don't necessarily have to have that. But I want you to look through here and see if you can find, and this is what I'm talking about, you review your file, it should be files, and find at least 3 things in the code or files that you want to learn more about, right? And then post your reply and your results. Because I want you to do a little research, because trust me, right, these are standard things you could figure out on the web. You just have to look at the files. Sometimes you can tell by looking, sometimes you need to do a little research. So what you want to do here is to give us a link, right? So give us that link. Boom, there you go. And then, what you want to do here is find at least 3 things. And again, I'm getting you started for the next thing, because the next thing is actually where you're going to do all this work. So you could actually start what's going to be next, which is your lecture. So now that we've gone through the steps here, right, of copying that template, finding it, copying, now I want you to get to know this template. Okay, so for this item, what I want you to do is to review. Now you're going to do a deeper review, and what you're going to do is end up creating a markdown file, right? And here's what I want you, where I want you to put it, and I'll show you how to do this to have both windows open in a second. And do first an inventory, you know, show the folders, what you think the folders are. If you need help determining what they are, then you can note that as well. So let me just set that up and show you what I mean. So now that I'm in this repo, what I could, in this folder, which is a repo in my local, what I could do is do a new window, right? And in this new window, what I could do is open my private, right? 82 private. Okay, so in here, and you're going to have, because these are going to be end up being in 2 locations, right? So let's drop that. So now we're going to create a new file and a new directory up here under lectures. I'm going to create a new file called template. Oh, it should be template. Let me do that right. Okay, because there's only one here. And then under this template directory, create a file called my template.md markdown. Oh, wait a minute, did I say? Oh, actually I said readme. Yeah, because readme is actually a better name. So actually let's rename that, because I think that's a standard file name that you see. And so now when you look under the template directory, you'll see that subdirectory, right? So start with here, looking at a inventory. Now this is just helping you get organized. Inventory of files and folders, right? And for you to determine which ones you know, which ones you don't know, right? So if I was looking at, and you could start here with your bootstrap for me, you know, that file name. Let's see, did I? Oh, I still have it. Yay, right? And then I could say CSS. What do I know what that one is, right? Then I could put a little comment underneath here, right? So up here, right, we do some of our organization. So that's what I want you to do, is start with, because you're going to end up finishing this up in the second item of this week, but I want you to get started here. All right, so first an inventory of the files, if you know what they are, and then we're going to start an inventory after that. And I want you to at least begin this part is an inventory of the code and the index.html. Okay. Now, some of this should be because it's a review, right? It doesn't have to be a lot of content, but if I was just to go over here and look at the index file, right? So first I'd want to see, do you know what these folders are doing? And if you don't know, start looking inside of them. And if you don't know what that is, look at that extension and determine what that is, right? And so just to tell you, because most of you will have this, your SAS, is this SAS? Let me go look here real quick so I could open it up and look at this. I believe this is, oh, so let me just show you. So actually in this case, right? So I could do SCS. Is it SCSS? There you go. So what is it? Or you could say, what is file extension? Ah, very nice. Sassy. CSS. That's what I thought. SAS. So SAS is something that is another programming type language that creates CSS, and for our purposes we're not going to use the SAS implementation. You're actually just going to look, probably not have to modify the CSS. So, but that way, that's how you know. If you don't know what's in the folder, right? And then you don't have to list every file, especially in the folders like this, because we're not going to use those. And the JavaScript, you probably won't have very many. These are template for me. Specific JavaScript files, so I definitely want to make sure I know later, by the time we finish, where these are being used to the best that I can. Git ignore. So here's another one, travis.yaml, gulp.js. We know index file. So this is, again, so this first part, right? So let me just go back here since we're almost done here. Let me get and open my other window. Right, so I have two windows open. I have here, right, so an inventory, and do your best to identify. If you do some research, if you need help, then you need to indicate that on your file, or actually on your reply here, right? And again, this will be in your private. This is actually now just between you and I, but we could think about sharing it, because I think it's a good way to also have us all learn. So maybe I'll think about that next week. Okay. All right. So I hope. So let me just say here, right, read me into and start working on the code. So I at least want you to get through all the files and start working on the code. The more of this you get done, right, if you get all of it done, then you could turn it in for both of these, but I would want to see all the files identified and then the code inside the index file, right? That's why I'm breaking it into two, because I know there's a lot here. So let's just for a second here start, and actually we'll continue this next time, but okay, we've seen the doc type, we know what that is. So now what's in the head section, right? So do you know what these things are, right? Could you give a little verbiage about what they are? Right? We know, do you know what the title is? It doesn't have to be long, just short sentences about what they do. And then this link, where is it pointing to? Well, I'll help you. This is pointing to the local. Here's vendor, bootstrap. So within vendor, there's a bootstrap, and this is the way they included the bootstrap into their template, right? So they actually downloaded it versus the CDN that we saw last time. So this is, sorry, I'm just going to that one. So you can see this one's similar, right? So would we need this folder when we're actually going to later own this template into our own directory, right? And the answer is, yeah, we will most likely, because these CSS files are specific to the template itself, and these CSS files are for the Bootstrap system. Now we could go through and figure out, based on which one it references, which of these we need, which actually would make our folders less, right? That's something to think about, something we'll talk about. All right, so I think that's enough. I think that's gets you a great start on this. So what you will do is you'll create, so this is your lecture this week is for you to do this, right? And then you'll end up doing all the code by the end. So I at least want to see all the files and start working on the code for the HTML. All right, talk to you later. What you will submit to me, if you're not clear by now, is actually in the private repo, your README file, and this, you'll end up pushing this up to GitHub and then giving me that link to your private repo folder right there. All right, talk to you later.